Howdy everybody, how y'all doing? And welcome to the Ice House, where we try to keep things cool, calm, collected, and mostly a bit chill, right? Well, last week I was talking about how the meta is changing, right? And I think I got a little derailed there, so I want to revisit a few things and maybe take it a few steps further, right? Because, right, as we know, like talked about last week, there's big businesses like Facebook and their parent company Meta. This is actually changing with the fact checking and I've even tagged some other people on Twitter X, right? That they're talking about how like all the big corporations, and it's a big conversation, right? All these big money companies are trying to change their policies or what it looks on the surface because the tip of the iceberg is only so far above the water. And if all that looks good enough, well, don't look underneath, right? Because don't see what's swept under the rug or what other metaphor you want to say. So today, I've been thinking a little bit more this week, and so today I want to talk. You know what? I think the meta is changing. I really do, and I think the currency is maybe just a few paradigms, right? Yeah. See what I did there? Change, dimes, but really, I think this whole meta concept is a big paradigm shift in general, right? Because okay, so you want to talk about the metaverse and all the different possibilities and exploring these ideas. It's been kind of going on sci-fi for a while now, right? And so that's just kind of been adopted in everyday terminology. But I think what we're losing is significant, and it needs to be noted. Because before we had meta shifts, we had paradigm shifts, right? And, well, when you talk about science and things like that, the paradigm is really the overall hypothesis concept that we're trying to prove, the filter that we're seeing the universe through, the world or our microcosm of a thesis and our experiments, whether they be scientific or socially science or which I think we're kind of in the big social science era, because some of this is new, but it's still humanity that hasn't really changed that much. So it's really learning and discovering how the medium affects the message and how the medium affects those who are interpreting and living out through those mediums. Become between hieroglyphics to written text to paperback to the Kindle reader and all that stuff, right? Right, I'm just catching you up. But okay, the point I'm getting at is, okay, so we have this thing in entertainment where, well, it's just been talked about even more this week about how we're getting more reboots and more rehashing of what has been, right? For a slogan that didn't quite work out about not being burdened about what came before, it seems like all we're really focused is on reinventing and re-expressing and relearning what came before. So this is a little bit kind of a curious path to go down, right? So before we start complaining about entertainment, we really need to go into the concept of institutional knowledge, right? So, okay. Now, for a while now, we've seen this in the, just in big business and, in all these IT fields and all these shifts of, and once again, a paradigm shift of industry, right? Because there's a lot of things that you needed the manpower and the wherewithal and, the people in the control tower, in the engine room, in the control room and all that stuff, because, well, if something went wrong, they knew how to fix it. They understood how to work with the components. They knew how to, they knew the things that were site specific. They understood the nuance, and something that somebody who's a bit green, who would go to their textbook and do all this stuff and try to go through all these procedures, wouldn't understand that there was actually a much more simple fix, or maybe there's just a known issue in the plant that this gets triggered and something sensor needs to be replaced, but it's not a big deal, right? But when we start removing all that institutional knowledge, when we say it's cheaper to hire, 3 or 4 different people who are no names, we'll get back to that, but fresh out of college, and well, these old school guys, now that they're older than the people who are now in charge, well, they're being sticks in the mud, and we just need to get rid of them because we have somewhere to go, and the boss's pet project is being stopped by all these old farts that want to do it the old way, right? And so, might as well just give them a retirement package, have them move on, and then, we'll do what we want, right? That sometimes that works out okay, but when you have a bunch of kids that are just, or newer people that are, more susceptible or really are being trained in the way that you want to train them, there's a lot of the institutional knowledge that they're missing, right? That they've... And maybe it's things that really can apply to the current system, but without somebody to teach them those aspects and those features and, how they're interconnected, or, like proof sets and stuff from a bygone era, all they're going to know is the new school, right? So, and this is before all the DEI and equity. I don't know why I'm using my air quotes there, but you know what I mean, right? It's just kind of being a thing for a while, right? And then it slowly turned into, well, okay, if we're going to get rid of these guys, we need to replace them with this something, because, well, once again, it's kind of an exchange rate. An old dude for 3 or 4 younger kids that still cost less than that old dude's salary. And then, well, we can fill the quotas, right? And if they're new, they don't have to be, we don't expect them to be as good as the people who are up top, but we can train them up and make sure they get there, right? Except for if the bosses are younger and newer than the old institutional knowledge, we're kind of screwed, right? And I think this trend has been going long enough in just the business world in general that it also, well, entertainment is a business, right? So there's some people that have been around for a long time and they can make the money, and so they kind of they get a pass, right? But sometimes you get a new school idea, or this sort of new, well, what we used to call paradigms, but now it's the meta, right? This paradigm that we need girl bosses and Mary Sues and, blah, 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 all the things, and how that all kind of steamrolls, and, the more of the actors in the studios getting mad at the customers for not consuming, for not liking, for not paying to see their product, right? As if the institution of the business itself guarantees success because they have been successful in the past. So if they're not successful, it's clearly not their change in direction, right? It's like when a company switches a logo or changes the recipe. if people don't like it, well, they have two options. They can change it back, or keep making stuff that people really aren't going to consume, right? So, yeah. It's kind of this weird catch-22 there. But I think it also happens in entertainment, right? I think we have some of these tried and true tropes, some of these universal truths that, well, some of the people that have been around forever, and the consumers and the, well, just the normies, and even if it's nerds, and, well, we all resonate with certain stories, but also because there's some aspect of humanity involved, there's some aspect of something true or something relatable that exists, right? But if you take away the tried and true, if you take away the relatable, if you take away the people that say, no, that's not going to work because, well, get out of here, you know? I want to be told that I get a green light, right? Or I need people to stop getting in my way, and the excuse that you're old and outdated, well, at some point in time, you know, people buy into that idea. But I think we have this idea that we respect our elderly, that we value their input when it comes to, you know, gathering around the fire or family gatherings, right? Or, you know, maybe my family has institutional knowledge and generational knowledge that is anecdotal and worthwhile, but, you know, an old dude on the street or an old dude who's just grumpy in the office all the time, well, they just need to get gone because, you know, they're not like grandma baking cookies. I mean, I don't know if it's a direct one-to-one comparison, but I kind of see something there. But the point is, right? The point is, we have lost so much institutional knowledge. We have lost so many people that have, well, they worked on the wheel, they've perfected the wheel, they've actually learned how to, I don't know, use different kind of wheels of different kind of stories, different kind of motivations, you know, modes of medium and all that. And all of a sudden, instead of saying, hey, how can we learn and connect these dots? It's like, no, we just need something new and people who are on board for this new thing. I mean, this isn't kind of a new idea in humanity in general, but I think we're paying the price, and I think it's the cost at a lot of paradigms and a lot of truths and a lot of learned, well, just tried and true methods that I think as the generation changes and each generation tries to oversteer and overcorrect from the last generation, I think we're doing a great job of missing something, or just trying to push something out and make such a hard reset, right? Instead of just trying to move forward and move on. It seems like we're at this stunted growth where the we don't have paradigm shifts. We just have, well, we're just trying to reinvent the meta and the wheel, and so instead of trying to figure out what we can make and make something new, we're just seeing rehash and rehash and rehash of the old stuff, because when you've taken away all that institutional knowledge, that generational knowledge, and everything you're doing is just trashing and destroying the thing that came before you, it's kind of like being OCD, right? And I think this is the last thing I'll really go on before I get out of here, but it's like being OCD. You keep doing the exact same thing because something feels off and something isn't right, and you know in your gut that something just isn't working. So it's like the stunted forward motion, because you have to make it somehow perfect or just right, or get the right feels, if you will, and then once that hits, once that's a success, what that feels like, hoorah, you know, all the fireworks and explosions and everything's happy, then you can move on to the next thing. But if you go 3 steps ahead and it all falls apart, well, you reset again. So I don't know if it's a bunch of kids who don't know what they're doing or trying to start something new, and it's this societal instance of OCD, right? Maybe, or maybe we should listen to the people who have done this over the years, and people that might have a technological, you know, might need to translate a little bit to learn the technology, but they understand human emotions. They understand the trends of humanity themselves and how things function in a general sense, right? In the grand scheme of things, just changing the medium doesn't change the people or the functionality or the needs at all. It just changes kind of how we see them, kind of how they're delivered, right? Which is why brands like to update their front page and their logo, and you know, every 70 years to keep it new and fresh and inviting. And yet sometimes we don't need something to be redone, right? Sometimes what existed was good and it stands on its own, and so we can build off that and learn from that. But if we take away all the people who understood how that worked and then try to do it over again, we're not going to figure that out very well. So, alright, well, if you guys have any thoughts or comments, leave them down below. And I don't know, how much do you think the meta should cost? Because, well, if freedom costs $1.09, I think the meta costs at least a few paradigms. Well, till next time, see you later. Bye!